Welcome to Reddit Aliens. Hotel or motel cleaners. What's the worst, most disturbing thing you've come across while cleaning? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Kinda wholesome story. I have a friend that owns a small motel just off a highway. I would hang out with him and chat on some late nights. One night, he got a call that one of the guests heard a loud crash in the room next door. Checked the computer and saw that the room was unoccupied. Friend and I go to check it out. We knock and there is no answer. He opens the door and there was a cat in the room. It knocked over a lamp and smashed it. It was super friendly and came right up to us. We took it back to the office and looked at the room records. The prior person that was in the room abandoned the cat when he checked out 3 days earlier. He was already on the other side of the country when we called him, and he said he was not coming back for the cat. My friend took ownership of the cat, and now she is the motel cat. She walks all around the property and takes care of any mice or critters. She even has her picture on the wall as one of the employees. Still was a dick move of the old owner to leave the cat behind. This next story kinda makes me second guess wanting to stay in a hotel ever again. When I was 18, I worked at a hotel for a year. One day, this room was late for checkout, so I was sent to go knock on the door. I knocked and a guy responded, "Leave me alone, I'll be out in a little bit." Okay, rude, but whatever. I relayed the message to the girl working the front desk. I passed the front desk about 30 minutes later, and she says she still hasn't come out of his room and sent me back to knock again. I knock, no response. I ask if he's okay, still no response. He's just in there, groaning. We end up calling the police. They enter the room with a keycard. Turns out this guy had been in a car accident on his way to the hotel and had been bleeding internally during his entire stay. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. We only knew that because he left all of his stuff behind and his family came to pick it up eventually. Upon entering the room to clean it, there was copious amounts of blood, vomit, and shit everywhere. Bloody handprint smears and poop all over the bathroom floors and wall, even in the shower. It trailed all the way from the bathroom into the bedroom and onto the actual bed. I told management that I wasn't comfortable with cleaning it up, and they essentially guilt-tripped me by telling me that if I didn't do it, my pregnant coworker would have to. I tied trash bags around my arms and legs and went at it. Took me over an hour. Had to wet vac the carpet and parts of the bed. They ended up renting the room out that same night, instead of having hazmat cleaners come in. Years ago, my wife worked as a live-in innkeeper. This happened in a tourist town during the off-season, so the place was dead. One night, this guy who rented a room called the front desk around 10-ish p.m. He claimed the room needed cleaning and demanded she come and clean it. Of course, she apologized, but said, "Sorry, the housekeepers are gone for the night." She was the only employee, so she did all the cleaning too. He wouldn't take no for an answer, and said he had spilled something that would ruin the carpet if it was not cleaned up immediately. Fortunately, I was living with her, so we both went to check out what was going on. We knock on the door. The guy opens the door and looks terrified when he notices me. He ended up saying we weren't allowed in to see the mess, to just worry about it in the morning. Morning comes and he left before I had to go to work, so I was curious to see what was up. So we both checked out the room and what do you know? It was spotless. I'm positive he was making up the whole thing and had bad intentions. I'm not sure what he had planned, but the room was fine and the way he acted when he saw me really didn't sit right. We reported the whole thing to the police. About a week later, a front desk lady at a nearby hotel went missing. I think it was a Red Roof Inn. They never did find her. No idea if it was connected or not. I worked at a ski resort in the hotels. One night a group of kids show up in a very expensive car and asks for a large room for a couple nights. We had space, so no problem. They handed over their Black's Amex card and went on their way. No real issues over their stay. Some noise, but nothing unusual for a group during ski season. Checked out early without stopping at the desk, but card is on file, so no problem. When the staff went in to clean the room, they were immediately hit with the smell of rotting meat. Look around and there is high-quality raw cuts of beef absolutely everywhere. Counters, washrooms on the stove, in the stove uncooked, and blood on the ceiling. Room was set to 25, so the meat had quickly started to turn. Burned spoons in the bed and tinfoil everywhere. We called and let them know the charges would be about $8,000 for the damage. They simply didn't care. Wasn't until later that a retired RCMP who worked on security detail mentioned that drugs are oftentimes hidden in meat for transportation as it masks the smell and just looks like a barbecue cooler. It had to be several $1,000s worth of good quality meat completely ruined for a weekend bender. When I was 15, I got a job as a motel room attendant. It was a smaller motel, and if you were to drive past it, you probably wouldn't even notice it. The only reason we got business was because of an old reoccurring customers or because workers would stay there for weeks or months as it was cheaper than a lot of other places. One day, we got some workers from Texas. I can't remember why they came, but they were there for a very long time. I was one of the only people that could get them things, as I was one of the only motel staff that knew enough Spanish to hold a conversation and was there often. It was uncomfortable to be around them since they were twice, even triple my age, and I just got a weird feeling from them. One day, when the men were out at work, I was in their rooms restocking their towels, toilet paper, and vacuuming. I was heading into the last of their rooms, and while opening the door, I heard some sort of crying sounds. I opened the door expecting to see one of their dogs, but I was met with a girl dangling from the ceiling. She was butt naked and had a bunch of cuts, bruises, and dried blood all over her. I didn't know anything after that for a long time, and I still don't know much. All I know is that the girl had been missing for 2 weeks before I found her, and that she was a sex worker. Is not a member of hotel staff or cleaning crew, but I once rented a hotel room that was somewhere in, I'm not going to specify where, but yeah, let's just say it's a desert climate, and I walked into the room, put my suitcase down, and opened the bathroom door to use the facilities, only to discover the acceptable number of scorpions in a hotel room, which is of course 0, was significantly exceeded in that moment, and most of them were occupying the bathroom. So as one does, I proceeded to close the door, firmly picked up my suitcase, firmly shook it again just to make sure I wasn't taking alongside any unexpected poisonous travelers. I left the hotel room, went down to the front desk, told them flatly there were an unacceptable number of scorpions in the room of my hotel room, demanded a refund, and then got back in my car after shaking my suitcase once again and double-checking. I didn't have any scorpions in my baggage on the trunk of the car before I even opened it, making sure there was nothing else in there before putting the suitcase back in my car and driving over to a truck stop about a mile away to actually use the bathroom, and then booking another hotel this time with a much better rating, even if it was a bit further from the airport. If you're wondering what an acceptable number of scorpions is or an unacceptable number of scorpions, the only definition I can tell you is there were a lot of scorpions. I didn't hang out to count them, but there were more than 5 endless and less than 100, probably. Other than that, I can't really describe the number of scorpions any better than that. Worked cleaning university halls in the summer after students moved out. Saw a whole lot of nasty stuff. 6-month-old bread, eggs, milk after students had moved out a week ago. Dirty sanitary pads all over the bathroom floor. Literal shit on the walls. We did find someone's bucket of needles that they had used because they were diabetic, I think. You would pretty consistently come across en-suite showers that hadn't been cleaned since the summer previously. Many showers with very clogged drains full of hair. We also used to have to do cleanings of some kitchens twice a week during the summer because some students turned up early and paid for it. You'd be surprised how disgusting a kitchen can become after only 2 or 3 days. Sink absolutely full of food that they had tried to shove down there, bins overflowing with crap, oil all over the hob and wall behind it. We did sometimes find things and get to keep them, from pretty small to pretty big. Found a 12 case of beer, 2 bottles of wine, and some Ben & Jerry's. Those were leftovers from people staying at the halls for a week for a conference. Some people are really rich and will just buy things and leave them there instead of taking them back home with them. This was especially true for the international students. They would leave behind designer watches, shoes, bikes, workout gear. Someone left behind an entire rowing machine. We contact them and ask them if they want it back. 9 times out of 10, they didn't want it and couldn't be bothered to find a way to throw it out, so they just left it with us. This story gets 2 thumbs up from me, maybe even 3. I worked as a housekeeper for about 8 months when I was 18. Like everyone else, poop, vomit, one room that was purposely as trashed as possible. On my first day, the other housekeepers made me do a honeymoon suite the day after a wedding as a rite of passage. It was well used, but the worst? A thumb. I entered the room, and the first area is a mini living room. It appears to be completely untouched. Now, this is a nice hotel from a regional chain, but it does have an agreement with local truckers where they can stop over at any time of night and have the room to sleep in, and these rooms often appear like this, so I'm thinking it will be the same. I walk past the bathroom to the bedroom, and all the bedding is jumbled up on the bed in a heap. Okay, maybe the guest stripped the bed for me, sort of. I enter the bathroom, and the bathtub has a lot of blood in it. It's clearly had a cleanup attempt based on the towels, but nonetheless, something bad happened here. I alert my bosses, and they have a look and incredibly send me right back in with extra heavy-duty gloves. I start with the bedroom, and at the center of the blanket bundle was a thumb wrapped in towels, as well as many prescription pill bottles and baggies of pills. I scoop the entire thing into a garbage bag and take it straight to the dumpster. My 18-year-old naive self never even thought further about what it all could have meant other than a terrible accident. The kicker? The guests called the hotel later that day and asked for housekeeping. Apparently, they left their allergy medicine behind and wanted to know if it was found, and the manager gave them my cell number to ask me. I was in school during the week, so I missed many calls from that number I didn't recognize before it eventually stopped. I have always felt like I dodged a bullet. Not a hotel cleaner, but I had a friend whose uncle was a hotel manager, and she often helped me doing reception and cleaning work when he was short on staff. Once they needed some more people to help clean rooms because they were full, but 2/3 of the usual clean crew was homesick. It was pre-COVID. I don't remember precisely what they got, but I think it's a bad flu, so I went helping for a couple of days. In a room I found a paper notebook. Being curious like a hamster, I checked it only to find a very detailed plan about how to sadistically rape, torture, and kill what I assumed was the notebook's owner's wife. Turned out it belonged to a woman who was writing a thriller novel. The receptionist told me the room was booked by this lone lady who couldn't stop talking about the novel she was writing, but I swear, I was this close to calling the police. Thankfully, I went talking with the receptionist first. There were also several times when this girl went helping her uncle and found gross, weird, or worrying stuff she told me about, like an used condom filled with a white and red liquid. Her comment on it, I seriously considered tracking down the guest to tell him to get checked, but it would have been too awkward, so I didn't. Or a kid's classic stickman drawing portraying what it looked like a case of child abuse, but turned out to be a drawing of the kid learning how to swim with her dad. The hotel had a pool. A huge butterfly knife hidden under a pillow, a small bag in the trash can filled with white powder that might have been flour but most likely wasn't. Last but not least, she once opened a closet only to find a green teddy bear with a burned hole where his left eye should have been. Okay, I worked at Comfort Inn in Northern California in my late teens, 19 to 20, and I'll never forget this one guest. He had been checked in by his brother, but he himself was physically disabled and most likely had a slight mental disability too, but was polite and seemed fairly capable of looking after himself. None of us were told that he might need anything outside of typical room service needs. The hotel had one suite on the ground floor that was handicapped accessible, largest room on the property. A day passes, but he doesn't want anyone in his room, just fresh towels and more soaps, which is totally normal for a lot of guests. The next day, I'm in the room above his stripping sheets, and as I'm walking to the laundry chute, I suddenly smelled shit. I dropped everything I was holding immediately. I hadn't seen anything obvious when I grabbed the towels and sheets, and the room I was in was pretty clean for being a suite. I keep walking to the laundry room but could still smell it. I get to the laundry room, and there were two other housekeepers talking about the guy in the suite downstairs, and apparently he had only used the toilet once the whole time he was in there. He had been pooping on the floor and rubbing it into the carpet, and then he cranked up the heater. And that's when the smell from the room wafted over the entire hotel and what I had been smelling upstairs. It was just as disgusting as you're imagining. But wait, there's more. We call the brother. He hurries over and then proceeds to yell at his disabled brother, who honestly never should have been left alone in the first place, in front of everyone. It was awful. He had to have known his wheelchair-bound brother had issues with using the bathroom. The poor guy didn't have adult diapers or anything in his room. Asshole brother gets his brother cleaned up, gets him situated in his car, and gives the two housekeepers who had that room $150 each for the horror they're about to endure. Yup, the owners refused to call hazmat to clean that room, so the housekeepers did it so they could keep the tips. It was effing insane, and we should have been calling OSHA or whatever, because I'm pretty sure it is illegal for them to take any of us clean shit and or blood. That hotel was nuts. I've got more crazy stories, but this one takes the cake for sure. I wonder if Mrs. A has contributed to some of our other stories on this channel in the past. Mrs. A's strange behavior became a hot topic among staff. In-room dining knocked with her dinner. The room was dark, but we called the room anyway. She answered and said to leave the tray on the floor outside. These are individual units outdoors on a mountain. When the server placed the tray on the ground, he felt watched. He glanced at the floor-to-ceiling window. The curtains were closed, but the guest was standing against the glass in the dark wearing a long white gown just staring him down. She flagged down one of our housekeepers and asked if they could help her light candles. When he stepped into her dark room, she screamed for him to get out and wait outside her room because of COVID. She brought 20 candles to him, one at a time. She had him light them. She covered the pillars so he couldn't see what they looked like, and she said her religion doesn't let her use lighters. She was flagged to the staff as extremely COVID concerned. She didn't want housekeeping. She didn't want engineering. She didn't want anyone stepping foot inside. We offered a few times because the few times staff interacted with her outside the door, it felt very hot. This was summer in Arizona, like her AC was broken and it smelled bad. She checked out after 10 days. The walls were smeared with satanic symbols in blood and fecal matter. There were 3 dead chickens and bags of chicken blood. She never turned on the AC, so all of that was sitting at 115 degrees for a week. We charged her for the professional cleaning company, and the extra week we left it vacant while we were sold out for lost revenue at a luxury resort. Guests who stay in that room now complain about hearing voices at night.